Welcome to Deep Dive. I'm Kevin Benedict, your host, and I want to thank all of you guys out there for joining us today. I'm really excited today to have Mason Uyeda from VMware.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And you are the Senior Director of Customer Success for the end-user computing part of VMware.
Correct, exactly.
Now, before we go any further, tell the audience here, because I'm familiar with it, but end-user computing, what's all included in there?
So the end-user computing portfolio falls under the umbrella of a product suite called Workspace ONE.
Okay.
And the mission of Workspace ONE is really as an aggregation point for an enterprise's applications, data, desktops, essentially anything an end user would require access to get their daily job done. We deliver through that interface.
Wow, and so you being responsible for customer success, that's a more challenging area in my book because a lot of their success is dependent on how they do things in their environment.
Exactly.
And so you're going to have to tell us how you do that.
Sure, happy to.
But before we go any further, why don't you just tell us about you?
Sure.
Give us a little background.
Well, I'm at VMware in end-user computing, and I love the space of end-user computing. I think within any particular area of technology, what end users do and the intersection of IT is the most exciting area because not only do we have the opportunity to impact and improve how an IT professional might do their work, but we have an opportunity to make end users more productive, more satisfied, happier with their job, all in their daily lives of mobility. Because as we've seen the drastic shift to mobility and how we all work today from anywhere, we all have an expectation of ease of use of all of our assets, whether it's personal or professional. So that's why it's a very exciting space.
So in the Workspace ONE, what all technologies do you involve? I know there's security, there's all that. So walk us through some of those highlights of what's included in there.
Okay, so if you think of Workspace ONE as a point of aggregation.
Yes.
So when you log into your Workspace ONE environment, you see an application catalog.
Okay.
Now, behind that, there's also an element of identity. So what's more important is not the device you're using, but actually who you are.
Okay.
And so we can map who you are with even where you are, so like geofencing, with what device you're on to provide you access, provisioned access to applications and data.
Okay.
If you happen to be a developer and you want access to a virtual desktop, wherever that desktop comes from, we can also deliver it through that browser as well.
Okay.
If you're looking for your line of business applications and you want them federated through a third-party identity provider like Okta, we can do that as well.
Oh, very good. So you facilitate the mobile world.
Exactly.
All right.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, very good. So customer success as a discipline, even before we get into there, what does customer success mean to VMware?
Well, I think part of what you're asking is, what are some of the origins of customer success? And we can't forget that there's this massive shift to the subscription economy. And VMware's there because in the subscription economy, with everything as a service, it means an organization, a vendor, realizes value, the economic value over time.
Right.
And as a cloud provider, a lot of our business is trending that way based on customer demand. And so in the environment, there's a massive shift that's driven a lot of disruption. Organizations are working hard at a customer success methodology to ensure that not only do customers get onboarded, which we actively do, not only do we drive adoption, say, with end users so they're actually using the software, but then they drive towards the renewal event as well.
Because it's not a once and done world anymore.
Packaged software is gone.
Yes. You can't just sell them once and say, we won, and move on to the next customer. They're going to pay you over 12 months, so they have to be happy over 12 months.
In fact, in the world of customer success, there's that phrase that there's no such thing as post-sales. Because, you're always in a cycle. And someone from TSIA, the Technology Services Industry Association, I think said it best. They said, think of customer success as really a services motion with a sales outcome.
Wow. So customer success, why does that deserve its like own organization and own structure and emphasis within a company today?
So if you think of the motion, of that subscription economy, and as organizations transform to that, there was no role in an organization that really looked at the life cycle of customer activity and who became the advocate for the customer inside of an organization.
Mm-hmm.
So customer success came on the scene because, in the world when it all first started, the deal would land, customers would get onboarded, salespeople would go away to the next deal,
right?
Or maybe there's a services engagement that would end,
right?
And the customer was left to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
Customer success is intended to kind of bridge the gaps between that cycle of activity as they drive towards adoption and expansion.
Because we know that what's important to us is continuing happiness by the customer, so they continue to be in relationship with us, and we continually get paid.
I mean, people talk about a delighted customer or super happy customer, but we're all people, we're all consumers, and essentially people think that's an emotional response, but at the end of the day, it's an emotional response to your experience with a platform, which is our Workspace ONE.
Absolutely. So if I understand this correctly, you've been involved in really introducing a lot of methodology and frameworks around customer success into VMware.
Right.
Talk to us about that. What does that look like?
Well, the essential elements were, and especially with emerging technologies, because in emerging technologies, they always tend to be the first out the door, so they take more care and feeding in an environment, especially if it's a new use case. So for VMware, it was virtual desktop. We had a lot of customers who'd never heard of one, but they wanted it for security and manageability. Right. So the question was, what can we do to help our customers adopt the technology? So what we put in place was essentially the elements of customer success, which was the customer success manager, which we call the program manager, and an architect to really help programatize and then architect and design their environment for them for success. So that was the roots of what we have today as customer success.
So does the framework and the methodologies for customer success, is it product dependent? So does it look different the way you do things with every different line of product you have?
Not really. I think the big difference is whether your product is an on-premises product or whether it's a hosted in the cloud product. Because fundamentally it's about telemetry and about information that you can glean and aggregate from your customer's experience. So for instance, if it's an on-prem product, you may not have telemetry to understand how many users do you have, what's the health. If it's a hosted environment, you have an opportunity to instrument, analyze, and actually do some remediation in advance of a customer issue. Okay.
So it sounds like there's some technology involved. Is there emerging technology that's really assisted companies in increasing customer success?
Right. So there's, in the industry, when we mention the environment, the environmental changes towards subscription, it's given rise to a whole new industry, which is the customer success software platform. And if you go out and just do a search on CS platforms, I think there's over 100.
Wow.
Over which probably 20 are being actively tracked in the quadrants. And all of those platforms are intended to provide a point of aggregation. So you can have various inputs, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's Zendesk, or whenever it's a SaaS product for instrumentation. And through those platforms, you can observe customer health, observe adoption, issue call to actions, build plans, all from within that environment.
Oh, so I can imagine you have dashboards and there's scores. Scores can go up, but you can be alerted early if there were customer issues out there, or people weren't actually adopting what they should be adopting, or not fast enough.
Well, it's also about their overall experience, and that's represented in a customer health score. And at the end of the day, the health score represents really their propensity to renew. The health score can be made up of as many metrics as you want to measure, but ultimately you care about product sat, you care about CSAT, customer satisfaction overall, and you care about their trending experience with the product in terms of, say, tickets filed. And those can give you an aggregate customer score, which is dashboard represented through a platform.
So these scores, how do you turn those scores into actual executive action?
Well, ideally there's no surprise.
Okay.
And so one of the questions we often get is, what's the difference between customer success and GSS?
Right.
Or what's the difference between customer success, and professional services.
Right.
So in the first case, the inherent difference is that CS is a proactive by nature. Our posture is proactive. We have a regular cadence with customers. We're aware of issues as they happen in real time. If a ticket needs to get filed, we often are notified right alongside of our GSS folks as well, so we're immediately aware. On the professional services side, after an SOW is complete, typically customer success remains in the room, aware and connected, to ensure that adoption continues and that their experience continues smoothly.
Oh, brilliant. So I imagine if the customer, this whole methodology and framework not only does it have operational value and value for decision makers and executives inside the company, but it must also have a marketing value too. And you can tell a potential customer, here's the frameworks and methodology we use to ensure success.
Right, right. And so our success model at VMware really revolves around most of our large customers. And frankly, it's because they tend to be higher touch customers. And if you're familiar kind of with the pyramid at the top tends to be high touch, at the bottom tends to be low touch. Low touch tends to require a very high degree of automation. It's more relevant to products that are, self-service products. Most of our products and most large enterprise products tend to be higher touch at the top of the pyramid.
Ah, very good. Okay, so let's look at the future, Mason. How do you, when you look into the future, how do you see kind of the best practices around customer success continuing to evolve?
At its core right now, it is a partnership between vendors and their customers. And that partnership instantiates itself in a success plan. And the success plan is the instrument we use to measure milestones, to measure critical path, to do planning and communicate with the customer. So I think one thing is the automation of that and the instrumentation of that plan in real time with our customers. So it's instantly shareable from whatever property we're on. So you as a customer can see the same success plan I do. We can co-edit it. You know exactly what I think your health score is. So there's absolutely no surprises in the relationship.
Oh, I love that. So
it's a high degree of transparency.
If you think you did a good job and I think you did a bad job, let's get together and figure that out.
There can be no disconnect.
Yeah.
And the industry is headed and really is almost there now. I think that's just right over the horizon. That's one big one. I think another one is it tends to be rooted in both GSS in the delivery of, the filing of a ticket, let's say.
Yeah.
And the question is very, very much rooted in GSS, how it used to work, where a customer calls in, they wait in line, they describe the issue to a person on the end of the line, the person on the end of the line describing that goes into a database.
Right.
And then someone looks at that and starts working on it. So that's all headed towards automation as well.
Oh, yeah.
And with AI and big data and machine learning, there's a huge opportunity to, in real time, watch what's happening, watch the keywords that are entered, aggregate keywords, and look for trends about your product. So in real time, within the space of a few days, a product manager should be able to know, hey, how's that new feature doing?
Yeah.
Or are we getting a bunch of calls about X, Y, Z? Right.
Ah, brilliant.
And conversely, leadership would also want to know what segments of our customers are experiencing challenges at what period of deployment. So if you think about it, depending on when they call into GSS to look for support, we should be able to determine where are they in the cycle.
Oh, yeah, and using kind of these pattern recognitions, if you anticipate that a customer is getting up to a point that's been problematic for others, can you proactively address some of those in advance?
So we should be able to anticipate. What you're talking about is expansion.
Oh.
That's one of the four key areas.
Okay.
The four traditional areas are the land, which is the quote, sales event, if you will.
Got it.
Adoption, which is really about getting the product not only deployed or getting them onboarded into SaaS, but then also driving license consumption. So that falls under the adoption. That's the utilization end of it. There's expansion, which is what you just mentioned, which is also about optimization. It's about identifying other use cases.
Yeah.
It's about growing numbers of users. That's the point at which a lot of customers are challenged because, hey, things work great with these 5,000 users. Let's go grow it to 10,000.
Yeah.
Then what happens? Or let's go bring on this other line of business. Then what happens? So if we're instrumented to watch expansion, and we can see this today in our SaaS properties, we can map users over time, end user activity, monthly active users, by device type even. So we'll understand that trend very well. So you ask about the future, I think that predictive aspect of a customer health based on trends is important as well.
Oh, that's what a
makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. It's fascinating discussion. So Mason, I want to thank you so much for sharing with us.
My pleasure.
And I want to thank all you guys out there for staying with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I got a question before we turn this off, though. There's millennials out there like Justin behind the camera. They're hard to please. They're spoiled.
They are.
You know, they
have high expectations.
They have high expectations. They're
technically literate.
Yes. Arrogant.
Very impatient.
Yeah. Immature.
Oh, sometimes. Yeah.
So from a customer success point, how have you seen, customer success? Do you have to look at like ages? Do they have are they harder to please like Justin here when they're a millennial than if they're somebody else?
You mean from a customer perspective?
Yeah. Would VMware have a harder time getting high customer success numbers?
No, you mean if only millennials were there?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So because in the world of IT...
Have you seen Justin though?
No, I guess I haven't.
Okay.
In the world of IT, we deal with some of these big brands, as you know. I mean, it's a fast-moving work stream, and they're not there. I mean, they're not there, because they are unassertive.
Okay.
So we hear about this all the time, and age has nothing to do with it, as far as I can tell. When they're concerned about something, I hear about it.
Okay.
When they're not, I hear about it.
So it's not harder to please.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I think that what I thought you were going to ask is the role of the CSM. Because one thing we didn't talk about was what's going on in the industry overall. Yeah. And I looked, and right now, there's about 60,000 jobs with CSM in them, 60,000 people.
So customer success managers.
Yeah, or architects or big data, whatever. Okay. But if you were to go to LinkedIn today, right now, there are 16,605 open jobs with CS in the title.
Interesting.
In the U.S.
So,
in the U.S.
So if this job doesn't work out for Justin, then there's a lot of openings in customer success.
It's big.
It's big.
It's big.
All right. Thanks for sharing this, Mason.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.